speaking of Padre baseball, pitchers and catchers report as soon as Super Bowl Sunday is over. So on Monday, the guys start rolling into the Cactus League. And there's a lot of questions as we go towards the Padres and the opening of spring training. Pitchers and catchers report the first week, and about 10 days after that, the rest of the full roster reports. Who is the fourth and who is the fifth starter? Huge question. My gut feel right now, it's probably going to be Adrian Morejon will be one, and I think Seth Lugo is probably going to be the other. In the background is the journeyman pitcher from the Atlanta Braves. Once upon a time was pretty good, Julio Teheran. I don't know what's going to become of Ryan Weathers. That'll only be decided as they go through these exhibition games in the Cactus League. So we'll have to see who is 4, who is 5, and where does the depth come. Everybody tells me Tatis, right field, Soto going to left field. Soto, I think, likes the idea of playing in left. It's a lot less complicated and a lot less space. I mean, I see you bump around to stuff in the kitchen all the time. Imagine playing right field at Petco Park with the walls that jut in and jut out, and the ball's bouncing off the walls at weird angles. So I think Tatis will have to teach himself to deal with that environment, that venue. And just like Soto's got to teach himself to hit again. But I think Soto probably will like left field. And he played left field as he came through the Washington Nationals farm system. They paid an enormous amount of money to the catcher, Luis Campusano, years ago. He has not arrived yet as a finished product. He will get his opportunity. It's time. I mean, he's done a good job improving the mechanics of catching behind the plate and handling pitchers, communicating with pitchers. He's really yet to show he can hit consistently at the major league level. Your starting first baseman will be Jake Cronenworth. Can he bounce back from what I thought was kind of a downsided offensive season? I have no doubt that he'll work hard. The only unique thing about him, he's undersized to be a first baseman. Usually your first basemen are 6'2", 6'3", Will Myers, 6'5". He's going to have to go up the ladder to get some high throws. That's going to be intriguing to see if he can actually accomplish all that. And the mystery question, and nobody's talked about it, they paid a lot of money to Drew Pomeranz 3 years ago. I didn't understand why, because Pomeranz has had such a history of injuries. San Diego, Boston, Milwaukee with the elbow. And nobody's talking about where he is on the rehab trail. Is he 100% back? Is he going to be the kind of guy you're going to have as a setup guy to maybe Josh Hader? And nobody's talking at all about Drew Pomeranz. I think that's one of the questions out there because they sure did write a fairly decent-sized check to get him after the deals to Boston and Milwaukee. So those are some of the stories that will start the minute they end the Super Bowl. Padre baseball starts the absolute next day.
Wow.
So we got a lot of topics on the table to talk about. We'll do all that through February into March in the Cactus League.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, the fans are so excited about the team. You know, Fan Fest was just a nut house. So this is going to be terrific. I think Nick Martinez really, really wants to be a starter, and he's going to put everything on the table to get that number 4 slot. So I think he's intriguing. Morejon makes a lot of sense as one of those guys too. I mean, they signed him for an $11 million deal back in the day and paid an additional $11 million on the luxury tax, for the penalties and everything else. So I think Morejon can do it. The only question is does he have the stamina to go, a full season or even half of a season? But I just love all of these question marks because remember, you roll the clock back like 8 years ago, 12 years ago, we were asking very different questions of the Padres. And now suddenly we've got a lot of good answers for most of these questions.
Well, because of established stars. I remember years upon years when I would go with my talk show on 690 and then 1090 to the Cactus League and the Padres spring training camp. And everybody would talk about Chase Headley. He's the only guy that came out of the farm system. Yeah. Was the only guy they talked about as if he was going to lead him to the World Series. He was a good established major league player. Mm-hmm. But now we're talking about superstars and free agent signings and contract extensions and big money, beaucoup buck money. So it's different. Just the whole environment of San Diego Padre baseball has changed. I recall one year everybody was excited because here came Chase Headley, Will Venable, and Nick Huntley. And that was supposed to be the future going forward.
Yeah.
And they had, those guys were established, credible, decent major leaguers, but they were not stars. Jake Peavy was rock solid, but he was not a superstar, even though he did win a Cy Young Award. So it's fascinating just to see how the environment around Padre baseball has turned. And somebody asked me, one of the national media guys asked me last week when I was on Sirius XM, they just asked me, have you ever seen it like this? And I said, well, Padres have always had support. It always built during the season if they were good. But when we started the years with Caminetti and Finley and Kevin Brown and those guys, it was not as if we were going to be a World Series team, but it built towards that, or wrapped around Tony Gwynn. I said, I have never seen excitement or anticipation as we're seeing right now down at Petco Park. So it's really cool for the community.
Yeah. I mean, this is just a great time to be a baseball fan in San Diego. There's no other professional or primetime professional sport in San Diego. So all the focus is around the Padres. But you know what? They got a lot of pressure now. I mean, they're expected to make the World Series, if not win it. And if something goes wrong, something goes sideways, it's going to be a difficult time for Padre fans.
If they don't get it done in the next 2 years, then they won't be able to get it done, because if Manny leaves, if Soto leaves, and that's realistic, then everything changes. And so if there's going to be a World Series game at Petco Park this time around, it's got to come in the next 2 calendar years. Final